Well, hello everyone. It's Thor, and today we are going to talk about Mahadashas and Bhuktis, and this is something very unique to Vedic astrology. So Western astrology mostly deals with transits and how the transits affect the planets. Well, Vedic astrology, we use the Vimshottari Dasha, and it's 120 year long sequence of planetary arrangements where we actually take a look at what planet is dominating your life at any certain given point of time. So it's really unique to Vedic astrology, and that's one of the reasons that I recommend getting your Vedic astrology chart, is so you can see what Mahadasha and Bhukti you're in. Because in Vedic astrology, the transits, although they are important, what's going to be the overriding influence is your Mahadasha and Bhukti lords. Okay, so I have a presentation I'm going to share with you guys. And today I want this to be more of a lesson, and also you can learn a lot about Vedic astrology and exactly what are these Mahadashas I'm talking about. If you guys are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. My goal is 10,000 subscribers, and I'm a little over 1,200 subscribers at this point. Oops, let me get back into that. Hold on, guys. I guess this will have to do. So we're going to just go along with this one. All right. I guess I'll have to just do on that. Okay, so like and subscribe. And if you guys are interested in your own readings, of course, check out down below, and you guys can check out my website, and it's 20% off right now if you use codename Thor at checkout, and we can definitely take a look at what Mahadasha you are in and what Bhukti you are in. And I do live Zoom readings and also pre-recorded readings that you can listen to at your own convenience if you guys are interested in that. So what I wanted to talk to you guys first was about this idea of where are the karmic winds blowing in your life. So you guys might have read, there's a passage in the Bible, it's Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And that song from the 60s by the Byrds is, there's a season for everything. Well, this is what we're talking about. Is it a time for romance? Is it a time for marriage? Is it a time for career development? Is it a time for spirituality? Is it a time of loss? Is it a time to relax and maybe chill? So every time period of your life is going to be governed by a planet. So right now, all of you that are watching this, you are in a Mahadasha and Bhukti. There is a ruling planet of what your experience is. And these planets not only govern what kind of karma is unfolding in your life, but these planets also seize your consciousness and influence your perception of things that are happening in your life. So that's why it's so important to really look at your Mahadasha and Bhukti and what's going on there. And you can know and you can learn, is this a time to go date people? Is this a time to look for a job? Is this the time for, where are the karmic winds blowing? So when I do a lot of my readings for clients, I will give them the example of the old sailing ships on the ocean. You see, the old sailing ships, they're dependent on the wind. Which direction is the wind blowing? And so that really influences how the ship is going to be navigated. So obviously, you want to go with the wind. You want to go with the flow of things. You don't want to be paddling upstream. So if you're in a time of romance and love, you might not want to be necessarily pursuing the career ambitions. So that's why it's so important to know what Mahadasha and Bhukti you're in, because you want to flow with life. You want to be in the flow of the river, not paddling upstream against the river. So even though Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of Autobiography of a Yogi, says that, you know, you can really accomplish anything through willpower, it's also a matter of, do you want to flow with life or do you want to go against the current? Okay, so I like, if you guys are like me, I like flowing with life. I like feeling like life is flowing in a nice relaxed way with, you know, where my efforts are rewarded and multiplied. So let's go back to the presentation. So we're going to talk about, oops, let me restart that, guys. Hold on a second. And I'm going to restart my presentation because I think that might be the issue here. So give me a moment. So we're going to go open that up again, my presentation. I'm using a software where I use one of those free softwares, the Open Office. So that could be part of the issue here. And let me start this back up. Okay, so let's go back. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you guys for being so patient with the technical issues. Okay, so we're going to go back and here we go. Okay, guys. So let's talk about the Mahadasha. And this is going to be the major difference, guys, between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. Okay, the major difference is going to be the Vimshottari Dasha system that I'm talking about. And a Mahadasha is a Sanskrit word. I think of it, it means like a large period of time, a grand period of time, and a long period of time that is governed by a particular planet. And a Bhukti is going to be a sub-period of that time, okay? Sub-period of a Mahadasha that is ruled by a particular planet. During a Mahadasha, a particular planet is highlighted in your birth chart. And the whole chart represents an overall blueprint of your karma. So let's take a look at, I'm using Joe Biden's chart just because, you know, he's really relevant at the time I make this video. But I'm going to show you Joe Biden's chart just to illustrate a point for you, all of you guys. So right now, if we look at Joe Biden's Bhukti, he's actually in Jupiter Mahadasha, and he's in Rahu Bhukti at the moment, okay? So these two karmas, the karma associated with Jupiter and the karma associated with Rahu, those are being highlighted and emphasized in Joe Biden's life at the moment, okay? And then later on in September of 2022, Joe Biden's going to be entering Saturn Mahadasha. And we're going to talk about that as I explain what Mahadashas are. But that's going to be when this part of his chart is emphasized. So even though all of your whole chart is active throughout your lifetime, there's areas that are basically emphasized in your chart. And that's going to be the prevailing karma that's manifesting in your life at that time. Although the general chart is still going to have a general influence on your life. So for example, if you have Saturn in your second house and you have issues with finances, it might be difficult for you to accrue finances. Well, that's going to be generally operating in your life, but during certain Mahadashas and Bhuktis, you know, there might be, if you're in a Venus period, maybe there's going to be more money despite that obstacle of Saturn. Venus is the natural karaka of money, so you're going to be attracting that more into your life. So let's go back to the presentation, guys. So what I want you guys to be aware of is when you're born, this starts the divine clock. So I want you to think of the Mahadashas and Bhuktis like a clock. Once you start your life, it's like the time starts clicking, and it's almost like there's this clock running where you go through this dasha sequence. Okay, so we know what kind of dasha you're going to be in 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That's predictable. That can't be changed. You can change your karma through remedies and through different type of how you respond to your karma. But we know what kind of planetary karma. We can just look at your chart and we know what's going to be, what happened 5 years ago, what's happening now, and what happens 20 years from now. We can look at that using your chart. So what we're going to do is, when you're born, the planets are in a certain arrangement of your chart, and we look at where your moon is. This is what's going to show where your what Mahadasha you start out in. And we're going to look at the particular nakshatra that your moon is in. And what planet rules that nakshatra is going to be the dasha or the Mahadasha you start in. So let's take a look at Joe Biden's chart. So if we notice, Joe Biden was born on November 20th, 1942, 8:30 a.m. birth time. And his moon, we're going to be looking at where is his moon in the chart. Okay, this is how they calculate the Mahadashas. Well, it's in the nakshatra of Aswini. Okay, well, Aswini, we know that that's ruled by Ketu. Okay, so Ketu is going to be the Mahadasha that Joe Biden was born into. And of course, on what degree, you know, there's more advanced calculations of what degree he was born in. So if we look here, he was born in Ketu Mahadasha, Jupiter Bhukti. So that's what was running. And then it just starts a sequence. It's like a clock. So it's going to be then Ketu Saturn, Ketu Mercury, then it's going to be Venus. Okay, so that's what's going to happen when you're running a Mahadasha and Bhukti. So it's going to be automatic. As soon as you're born, it's like you hit the ground running and these dasha sequences start. Now, typically when you're a child, you know, your parents and your education, your teachers, you know, primarily influence how you're experiencing life. So, you know, the Mahadasha will have some effect on how your perception of everything is. So, you know, if we see that Joe Biden was in Venus during his formative years, Venus Mahadasha, you know, that could show a mostly pleasant type of experience, a pleasant childhood. If someone's born in, say, like Saturn Mahadasha, you know, and Saturn's not well placed in their chart, they might have had a really difficult childhood because Saturn lasts 19 years. So it can show a lot of difficulty, obstacles, blockages, and so forth. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to the chart. So the Mahadasha is like a clock, guys. The sequence of the Mahadashas cannot be changed. So it's going to be the same. You can't change it, guys. It's like all I can tell you when we're looking at your chart is what's coming next, what you're in and what's coming next. It's all predetermined what Mahadasha and Bhukti you're in. So you can only modify the karma of the planets through responding differently to the karma or remedial measures. And there's different remedial measures you can do to mitigate or to increase positive karma in your charts. So this is the types of Mahadashas. Okay, so if we look at Ketu Mahadasha, it's 7 years long. If we look at Venus, 20 years. So Venus is the longest Mahadasha out of all of them. And so on. So each one of these, Sun, Moon, Mars, Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, there's going to be 9 of them, different types of Mahadashas in your chart. And you're going to be in one of these. All of you right now are in one of these Mahadashas at the moment. You're in one of these planetary Mahadashas. The next thing we're going to talk about, so the Mahadasha, if you notice, they're very long periods of time. Even when you look at the shortest Mahadasha, Sun Mahadasha, 6 years, that's still a significant amount of time. So we're talking about a really big time. That's why we also have the Bhuktis, the sub-period, so we kind of narrow in more on what type of planetary karma. Because if you're in Venus Mahadasha, it's not like you're going to be in the same type of karma the whole 20 years, but there's going to be a similar theme. So let's say in the beginning of Venus Mahadasha, you get married, because a lot of people do. It's say you get married and have a family. Well, that's going to be the prevailing background for the next 20 years. There's going to be a similar theme of maybe this marriage theme, but then there's going to be all types of different sub-stories woven into that 20-year long period through the Bhuktis. So this is where it gets really fascinating. So it's almost like, and it's really interesting when you guys study this stuff, it's almost like we're running a script. Your life is running a script. Even though we have free will, there's some of it that seems scripted. So let's go to the Bhuktis. Okay, so I'm using Venus Mahadasha as an example. Now, all the Bhuktis are going to be different lengths based on what type of Mahadasha you're in. So let's say you start Venus Mahadasha, and this is hypothetical, guys. So the first bhukti is going to be Venus Mahadasha, Venus bhukti, and that's going to go for 41 months. And then when you switch bhuktis, you go into Sun bhukti, but you're still in that same Mahadasha, you're just in a different sub period. So again, all these times run like a clock. So after 12 months of Sun, boom, you're going to go into Moon. It's just like a clock. So all of this is just running as the time moves. You're going to be in the sequence, and it's always going to be that sequence. So when we looked at the last chart, it showed Ketu. It's always going to be in that sequence. Sun, Moon, Mars, Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Ketu, Venus. It's always going to be in that sequence, the bhuktis or whatever Mahadasha you're in. Okay. And if you add up all those bhuktis, it's going to be the 20-year-long period. So each one of these bhuktis, we have to look at specifically what is the bhukti. What does the bhukti lord represent? And there's going to be that added influence in your life of what that planetary bhukti is. And you guys are probably wondering, you know, as you study this, like, what's going on? How do I interpret what type of Mahadasha I'm in? Well, that's what I wanted to talk about next. So let's go and having a little bit, just let me move into this. How do you interpret it? Because that is something very important. So what you guys are in one of these planetary doshas, and then you're going to be in a bhukti. Well, first you want to find out what planet's Mahadasha you're in. Okay, so we need to run a chart, and we need to use Vedic astrology, the sidereal zodiac, and most of the software programs have a Vimshotari calculator on them. Okay, so then we can find out what Mahadasha you're in. Okay, so then we're going to say, and again, I'm using the example of Venus. What are the meanings of that planet? So for example, Venus, it can represent love, romance, pleasure, marriage, contractual agreements, money, women, feminine energy in general. So those themes, what the planet represents, you know, like Jupiter would represent children, or Saturn can represent restrictions and old age. So there's going to be some signification of the planet that's manifest during that period. So that's the first thing you look at. What does the planet represent? And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at look at the location of the planet within the chart. Which house is it in? That's going to influence what house is it in, and what houses does that planet rule in your chart. Those will all be themes. So if we take a planet like Mars, for a Leo, for example, let's say you're Leo ascendant or Leo moon, you know, a planet like Mars is going to be, you know, it shows conflict, war, forward movement, sports. It can show all that kind of thing, but it rules positive houses for a Leo. It rules the 4th house and it rules the 9th house, you know. So there's going to be also themes of mother and father, because 4th house represents mother, 9th house represents father. There's going to be issues of gurus, of teachers, because of the 9th house influence, issues of religious teaching. So those are also going to be a theme. And you can mix in, what is it, Mars and the 9th house? Well, that might show you new innovative types of teachings coming your way, because Mars represents new innovative types of things. So this is the way you look at it. And then let's say if Mars is in the 2nd house of the chart, we can also use that. This could be issues with your family or issues with money and finances. So that's what we want to look at. We look at all these factors to give you a general layout of what kind of karma is going to be ripening in your life during a specific time. So we're going to use Joe Biden as a case study. And I want to use Joe Biden's chart just to show you how we can look at it. So remember, if you went to my video with Joe Biden, he's going to be entering Saturn, a whole new Mahadasha, in September 21st, 2022, all the way to September 20th, 2041. Now, obviously, maybe he won't live that long, and that's okay, but he's going to be in that Saturn Mahadasha. So the first thing we're going to look at, and let's take a look at his chart so I can show you. So in September of 2022, like we were talking about earlier, Joe Biden's going to be in Saturn Mahadasha. So the focus is going to be on this karma in Joe Biden's chart. Well, the first thing we're going to look at is, what does Saturn mean? before we even look at the house it's in and the lordship of the houses, because we're going to be looking at 7th house, 3rd house, and 4th house, we need to first look at what does it mean. So let's take a look. So Saturn has to do with old age, hard work, heavy karma, social judgment, isolation, coldness, not enough time, static situations that are unmoving. Saturn can definitely be a pain in the neck. Delays, setbacks, heavy karma. So there's always that feeling of heaviness, hard work during Saturn period. So regardless, this is what's going to happen. You know, with Joe Biden, if I was giving him an astrology reading, I would say expect all these things. Heavy karma, isolation, coldness, not enough time. You know, but he's at an age, I think he's in his 80s, right? He's at an age or close to 80 years old where, you know, he pretty much understands Saturn pretty good. I mean, once you've had a few Saturn returns and you're over the age of 36, the older you get, the more okay you are with Saturn. But he's going to definitely understand it. And it could be, you know, Saturn is the karaka of old age. So he's definitely going to be feeling this heaviness even on his body. Okay. Then the next thing we're going to look at is the 7th house for Joe Biden. So there could be a focus on his marriage, on his relationships, contracts, okay, and even business decisions. Okay, so that's all going to be an issue. 7th house can deal with career because it influences like the 10th house. Okay. So it's one of the Kendra houses. Okay, so 7th house, you know, we look at that even with career and business. So it's going to be a focus on that. And then laws, 7th house also represents laws and lawmaking. So there's going to be some more laws, maybe we're going to focus on that. And then if we're looking at 3rd house and 4th houses in Joe Biden's chart, well, 3rd house could represent siblings, media messaging. Maybe there's going to be a lot of time in the media. 4th house represent homeland and home, issues with the homeland. But regardless, in that Saturn Mahadasha, there's going to be a feeling of heaviness. It's going to be a darker time for Joe Biden. You know, maybe Jupiter feels a lot more optimistic. He won the presidential election. And then Saturn, things are starting to feel more restricted. So that's what we do when we take a look at, you know, your Mahadashas, is we're really looking at what kind of planetary influences are happening. So let's say you're in a period of Venus, and let's say, you know, you're looking to date. Well, generally, on a general level, I would say it's a really great period to date. Okay, because Venus is the karaka of love and romance. Even a Mars period can be good for dating because Mars is that pursuit energy. We also would want to look for your specific ascendant. If you were looking for dating, we would look at, are you in a period of the 5th Lord? Because the 5th Lord is about dating and courtship. So that's how we can look at all of this when we're looking at your astrological chart. We can see what season of life are you in specifically. Okay. And so this is all, like I said, it's like clockwork. We're just running through a clock. So that's what's so cool about Vedic astrology. And that's what brought me into Vedic astrology, was this idea of this Mahadashas. And I realized how informative it was. So thank you guys for being here. Sorry about the technical issues I had earlier. I'm going to take a look at, give me a moment, see if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see. We got Ioli, we got buy or buy not to go to bed, 4 o'clock here. If any questions, I'm interested in 3rd of August, interesting day, good night. Okay, so buy or buy not must be in a different part of the world. Karen's like, oh no, how late am I? Don't worry about it. So the 3rd and the 4th of August, somebody in the live is asking about that. What I want you guys to know is the 3rd and 4th of August, well, what's going on around, if you guys have watched my previous videos, at the end of July, especially around July 31st, and then August 1st and August 2nd, around that time is going to be the Mars, Uranus, and Rahu conjunction at 24 degrees of Aries. So we really want to see what is that going to do for your chart. How is that? That's a lot of powerful influx of energy coming in there. So if we were to look at, again, I'm just using Joe Biden as a reference since I have Joe Biden's chart to look at. So if we look at Joe Biden's chart, you know, this is going to be happening, this conjunction around August 3rd, August 4th that the questioner was saying. Really, it's more between July 31st and August 2nd. But that particular conjunction of Mars, and then we're going to have Rahu, and then we're going to have Uranus, okay? That's going to be in the 6th house of Joe Biden's chart. Okay, and 6th house can represent health problems, conflict, war. So we're definitely, it's happening right near the moon of Joe Biden's chart. So this can show a really strong emotional time. Also, problems in the homeland because of the moon's influence. Remember, the moon in your chart can represent your mother, but the moon in your chart can represent your homeland, because it rules the natural 4th house of Cancer. So that's what we want to look at. So that important conjunction, you know, we might see a lot of things happening in the collective consciousness, especially in the United States. It's going to be happening in the 6th house of Joe Biden's chart, the 6th house of the USA chart. But it's going to be influencing a specific house in your chart, depending on where your moon is and where your lagna is, where your ascendant is. So that's important to check your chart and see what's going to be happening July 31st to August 2nd, because that's an important time frame. Now, talking about the Mahadashas and Bhuktis, what I want you all to be aware of is your Mahadasha and Bhukti is always going to have the prevailing influence, even over the transits, okay? So if you guys are in a Mahadasha of Mars or a Bhukti of Mars, then, or Rahu, so if you're in a Mahadasha or Bhukti of Mars or Rahu, then that transit's going to have some added potential. So when you're in a Mahadasha of, say, Mars, one of the most important transiting planets to look at is going to be Mars, okay? And then Saturn and Rahu and Ketu. Generally, the planets, like if you're not in a Mahadasha or Bhukti of a planet, say if we're looking at Mercury or Venus, for example, and you're not in one of the Bhuktis or time period of that, it will have less influence. You won't really notice it too much within your life and within your chart, okay? So thank you guys for being here. We're going to take a look and see if there's anything else. And thank you guys all for being here. This was more of an informative, obviously, video. So make sure to subscribe and also let me know, comment down below and let me know what you guys think, or let me know if you guys know what Mahadasha and Bhukti are, and let me know so we can see what kind of Mahadashas and Bhuktis everyone is in. For your information, I'm in Venus Mahadasha myself, and I'm in Mars Bhukti. So this Mars transit that's happening on July 31st to August 2nd, I should be paying attention to it because I'm in a Mars period. So that's definitely something I should be looking at if I'm looking at my astrology chart. So thank you guys for being here, and take care, and I'll see you in the next one.